Before his death, King David, sensing the approach of his end, summoned his son Solomon and gave him his final instructions. He urged Solomon to be courageous, to follow the commandments of the Lord, to walk in his ways, and to uphold his statutes, commandments, judgments, and ordinances as written in the law of Moses. David emphasized that such a life would ensure Solomon's success in all his endeavors and undertakings. He also promised that if Solomon and his descendants remained faithful to the Lord, their royal line would endure, and there would always be an heir on the throne of Israel. In addition to these general instructions, David left Solomon specific directives concerning individuals who had played significant roles in his life. He commanded Solomon to punish Joab, the son of Zeruiah, for the murders of Abner, the son of Ner, and Amasa, the son of Jether, committed in peacetime, when Joab shed innocent blood, staining David's belt and sandals. David also instructed Solomon not to let Shimei, the son of Gera from the tribe of Benjamin in Bahurim, go unpunished, for Shimei had bitterly cursed David during his flight to Mahanaim, though David had once sworn not to execute him. In contrast, he urged Solomon to show kindness to the sons of Barzillai from Gilead, who had supported David when he fled from his son Absalom. After these words, David rested with his fathers, having reigned for 40 years, 7 in Hebron and 33 in Jerusalem, and was buried in the city of David. After David's death, Solomon ascended to his father's throne, and his kingdom grew exceedingly strong. However, early in his reign, he faced a challenge from his older brother Adonijah, the son of Haggith, who had previously attempted to seize the throne with the support of Joab and the priest Abiathar. Adonijah approached Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, with a request that she ask the king to give him Abishag the Shunammite, who had served David, as a wife. Bathsheba conveyed this request to Solomon, but he became furious, seeing it as a veiled attempt by Adonijah to claim the kingship, given that Adonijah was the elder brother and had some standing among the people. Solomon swore by the Lord that Adonijah would pay with his life for this, and he ordered Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, to execute him. Benaiah carried out the command, and Adonijah died that same day. Next, Solomon turned his attention to other potential threats to his authority. He did not execute the priest Abiathar, who had supported Adonijah, out of respect for his past service. Abiathar had carried the ark of the Lord during David's time, and shared in all his hardships. Instead, Solomon removed Abiathar from the priesthood, and banished him to Anathoth, fulfilling the prophecy about the house of Eli in Shiloh. Zadok was appointed priest in Abiathar's place. When Joab heard of Adonijah's fate, he realized his own life was in danger, and fled to the tent of the Lord, grasping the horns of the altar in hopes of sanctuary. Solomon sent Benaiah to strike him down, but Joab refused to leave, declaring he would rather die by the altar. Benaiah killed Joab there, and buried him in his house in the wilderness. Solomon justified this act by stating that Joab had shed the innocent blood of Abner and Amasa, and the Lord had brought his crime back upon his own head. After Joab's death, Benaiah took his place as commander of the army. As for Shimei, who had cursed David, Solomon initially ordered him to settle in Jerusalem, and not leave the city under penalty of death. Shimei swore to obey, and complied for 3 years. However, when 2 of his slaves fled to Achish, the king of Gath, Shimei broke the restriction and went after them. Upon learning of this, Solomon summoned Shimei, accused him of breaking his oath to the Lord, and disobeying the king's command, and reminded him of the evil he had done to David. Solomon ordered Benaiah to strike Shimei down, and he died. Thus, Solomon eliminated all who could threaten his rule, and the royal authority was firmly established in his hands. Having secured his position, Solomon began to strengthen political alliances. He formed a bond with the Egyptian pharaoh by marrying his daughter, and brought her to the city of David until he completed the construction of his palace, the Lord's temple, and the walls around Jerusalem. One day, Solomon traveled to Gibeon, the most prominent high place at that time, where he offered 1,000 burnt offerings on the altar. That night, the Lord appeared to him in a dream, and offered to grant any request. Solomon, acknowledging his youth and inexperience in governing a great people, asked for a discerning heart to judge the people justly, and distinguish between good and evil. The Lord praised him for not requesting wealth, long life, or the death of his enemies, and promised to give him wisdom unmatched by anyone before or after him. Additionally, God pledged to grant Solomon wealth, glory, and, if he remained faithful to his commandments, a long life like David's. Awakening, Solomon returned to Jerusalem, offered sacrifices before the Ark of the Covenant, and held a feast for his servants. Solomon's wisdom soon became evident to all. One day, two prostitutes came to him, disputing over a child. The first claimed that the second had accidentally smothered her own son at night, and swapped him for the first woman's living child, placing the dead child at her side. The second denied this, asserting the living child was hers. As they argued before the king, Solomon ordered a sword to be brought and commanded that the living child be cut in half, with each woman receiving a portion. The true mother, moved by compassion, pleaded for the child's life and offered to give it to the other, while the second agreed to the division. Solomon awarded the child to the first, recognizing her as the true mother. This judgment astonished all Israel, and the people saw in the king the wisdom of God, aiding him in rendering just decisions. Solomon organized the administration of his kingdom, appointing key officials. Among them were Azariah, the son of Zadok, as priest, Elihoreph and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha, as scribes, Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud as recorder, Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, as commander of the army, and Zadok as priest. He divided Israel into 12 districts, each led by a governor responsible for supplying provisions to the royal court for 1 month each year. Solomon's kingdom stretched from the Euphrates River to the land of the Philistines and the border of Egypt. Neighboring kings paid him tribute, and Judah and Israel dwelt in peace and abundance. Solomon's daily provisions included 30 kor of fine flour, 60 kor of regular flour, 10 fattened oxen, 20 pasture-fed oxen, 100 sheep plus deer, gazelles, roebucks, and fattened fowl. He maintained a large military force, 4,000 stalls for chariot horses, and 12,000 horsemen, stationed in various cities, and with the king in Jerusalem.
Like the midnight rain, every touch is on my veins. Tell me now, do you feel it too? I'm lost in you, I'm lost in you. I'm drowning deep, can't find shore. You pull me in, I need it more. No way back, I know it's true. I'm lost to you, I'm lost to you. I'm drowning deep, can't find shore. You pull me in, I need it more. No way back, I know it's true. I'm lost to you. The black, 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 black.
Solomon's wisdom surpassed that of all the sons of the east and Egypt. He was wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite, Heman, Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol, and his fame spread among all nations. He composed 3,000 proverbs and 1,005 songs, possessing knowledge of nature, from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop growing on the wall, as well as of animals, birds, creeping things, and fish. People from all nations came to hear his wisdom, and kings of the earth, hearing of him, sent envoys to learn from his understanding. One of Solomon's greatest achievements was the construction of the Lord's temple. He formed an alliance with Hiram, the king of Tyre, a friend of David. Solomon requested cedar and cypress wood from Lebanon and skilled workers, promising to pay their wages and supply provisions for Hiram's court. Hiram rejoiced at this alliance, blessing the Lord for giving Israel a wise king, and agreed to fulfill the request. Solomon mobilized 30,000 Israelites for work in Lebanon, sending them in shifts of 10,000 per month, with 2 months of rest at home. He also employed 70,000 burden bearers and 80,000 stone cutters in the mountains, overseen by 3,300 supervisors. The temple's construction began in the 4th year of Solomon's reign, in the month of Ziv, the second month, 480 years after Israel's exodus from Egypt. The temple measured 60 cubits in length, 20 cubits in width, and 30 cubits in height. Its interior was lined with cedar panels, adorned with carvings of cherubim, palm trees and flowers, and its floor was covered with cypress boards. The most holy place, 20 cubits long, wide and high, was overlaid with pure gold, and within it, Solomon placed 2 cherubim made of olive wood, each 10 cubits tall, their wings touching the walls and each other in the center. The Ark of the Covenant was set beneath their wings. The construction took 7 years, and was completed in the 11th year of Solomon's reign, in the month of Bul, the 8th month. Upon the temple's completion, Solomon assembled all the elders of Israel, the heads of the tribes, and the leaders of the families, to bring the Ark of the Lord's covenant from the city of David, that is, Zion, to the temple. This occurred in the month of Ethanim, the 7th month, during a great festival. The priests carried the ark into the most holy place beneath the wings of the cherubim, where it contained only the 2 stone tablets placed there by Moses at Horeb. As the priests withdrew, a cloud, the glory of the Lord, filled the temple so densely that they could not minister. Solomon addressed the people, blessing the Lord for fulfilling the promise to David that his son would build the temple. He recounted how the Lord had chosen Jerusalem for his name, and David to rule Israel, and how these words had now come to pass. Then Solomon stood before the altar, raised his hands to heaven, and offered a lengthy prayer, asking God to dwell with Israel. Hear prayers directed to the temple. Forgive the people's sins, judge the guilty and vindicate the innocent. Send rain in times of drought, deliver from famine, plague or enemies, and even hear the prayers of foreigners who would come to pray for the sake of the Lord's name. He prayed that all the peoples of the earth might know that the Lord alone is God. After the prayer, Solomon blessed the assembly, thanking the Lord for the peace and rest granted to Israel, and urging the people to remain faithful to God. To dedicate the temple, Solomon offered 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep as a peace offering. Since the bronze altar before the temple was too small, he consecrated the middle of the courtyard, where the sacrifices were made. The celebration lasted 14 days, 7 days of dedication and 7 days of festivity, drawing a vast assembly from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of Egypt. On the 8th day, Solomon dismissed the people, who went home praising the king, and rejoicing in the goodness the Lord had shown to David and Israel. After completing the temple and his royal palace, the Lord appeared to Solomon a second time, as he had in Gibeon. He affirmed that he had consecrated the temple and would dwell there, with his eyes and heart fixed on it forever. The Lord promised to establish Solomon's royal throne over Israel forever, if he walked in his ways, as David had, with a pure and sincere heart, keeping his statutes and commandments. But he warned that if Solomon or his descendants turned from him and served other gods, Israel would be uprooted from the land, and the temple would become a ruin, a byword and mockery among the nations, with passers-by asking why the Lord had done this to the land and the temple. Solomon also built his palace, spending 13 years on it, longer than on the temple. The palace, made of Lebanese wood, was 100 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high, supported by cedar pillars and beams. It included a hall of justice for the throne, a pillared porch, and a house for Pharaoh's daughter, adorned with choice stones and cedar. Solomon rebuilt cities such as Gezer, given by Pharaoh after its conquest, Hazor, Megiddo, Lower Beth Horon, Baalath and Tamar, using forced labor from the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, and Jebusites, but not from the Israelites, who served as soldiers, officials, and commanders. Solomon developed maritime trade, building a fleet at Ezion Geber near Elath on the Red Sea with Hiram's help. The ships sailed to Ophir, bringing back 420 talents of gold, along with silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. One of the most famous events was the visit of the Queen of Sheba, who arrived with a great retinue, camels laden with spices, abundant gold and precious stones, to test Solomon's wisdom with riddles. He answered all her questions, and she was astounded by his knowledge, his palace, his food, his servants, and his offerings in the temple. She admitted that the reports of his wisdom and wealth had not conveyed even half the truth, blessed the Lord for placing Solomon on the throne, and gave him 120 talents of gold, spices, and gems. Solomon reciprocated with lavish gifts, and she returned to her land. Each year, Solomon received 666 talents of gold, besides income from merchants, Arabian kings, and regional governors. He crafted 200 large shields of hammered gold, 600 shekels each, and 300 smaller shields, 3 minas each, placing them in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Solomon made a throne of ivory overlaid with gold, with 6 steps, 2 armrests, 2 lions beside the seat, and 12 lions on the steps. All his drinking vessels were gold, and silver was deemed worthless in his day. Tarshish ships, sailing with Hiram's fleet, returned every 3 years with gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks, adding to his wealth. Solomon surpassed all the kings of the earth in wisdom and riches, and people from everywhere sought to hear him, bringing gifts of gold, silver, garments, weapons, spices, horses, and mules. He amassed 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, stationing them in cities and in Jerusalem, where silver became as common as stones and cedar, as plentiful as sycamores in the lowland. However, Solomon fell into sin that overshadowed his reign. He loved many foreign women, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, totaling 700 royal wives and 300 concubines, besides Pharaoh's daughter. These women turned his heart from the Lord to foreign gods like Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Molech, the abomination of the Ammonites. Solomon built high places for these gods on the hill facing Jerusalem, offering sacrifices and incense, thus angering the Lord. God, who had appeared to Solomon twice, reminded him of his command not to follow other gods, but Solomon disobeyed. The Lord declared that, because of this, he would tear the kingdom from Solomon's descendants, leaving one tribe for the sake of David and Jerusalem, though not in Solomon's lifetime. The Lord raised adversaries against Solomon. Hadad, of Edom's royal line, who had fled to Egypt in David's time, returned after David's and Joab's deaths, became king of Edom, and caused trouble for Israel. Rezon, the son of Eliada, who had escaped from Hadadezer, king of Zobah, seized Damascus and ruled there, opposing Israel throughout Solomon's days. Within the kingdom, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat from the tribe of Ephraim, a servant of Solomon, rebelled against the king. He oversaw the labor force of the house of Joseph during the building of Millo, and was a capable and strong man. The prophet Ahijah of Shiloh met Jeroboam in a field, tore his new cloak into 12 pieces, and gave him 10, declaring that the Lord would give him 10 tribes of Israel, because of Solomon's sins, leaving Solomon's descendants with only 1 tribe for David's sake. Ahijah promised Jeroboam a lasting kingdom if he remained faithful to the Lord. When Solomon learned of this, he sought to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam fled to Egypt, to King Shishak, and stayed there until Solomon's death. Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. All his deeds and wisdom are recorded in the book of the Acts of Solomon. After his death, he rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. His son Rehoboam became king, but due to Solomon's sins, the kingdom soon split, as the Lord had foretold through Ahijah. 10 tribes went to Jeroboam, while Rehoboam retained only the tribe of Judah.